Tonight, fight to the end. Protests continue in South Korea as residents call for President's impeachment, while South Korean President vows to keep on fighting. Win-win cooperation. President Xi Jinping has emphasized that China is prepared to stay in communication with the United States, highlighting the importance of trade cooperation. Topping Times People. Trump is named Times Person of the Year and rings the New York Stock Exchange opening bell. And a robot in the fields. Meet Swagbot, the AI-powered robot cattle herder, preventing salt degradation. All that and more as World News Tonight starts right now.
This is Derana World News Tonight. Reporting from Colombo, here's Akhil Qureshi.
Welcome down to World News Tonight. We've got quite a lot of updates to bring to you from around the world. Let's begin in South Korea. More protests are sparking in South Korea in response to the President Yoon Suk-yeol's address, where they vowed to fight to the end. This comes amidst call for his impeachment after failed martial law declaration.
Crowds flooded the area in their hundreds after Yoon stated in a televised address that he'd, quote, fight to the end. That's even as South Korea's opposition submitted a second impeachment bill over Yoon's short-lived martial law order last week, and his own party moved closer to voting against him. Jeon Min-kyung was among the protesters. In his address, Yoon alleged North Korea had hacked South Korea's election commission, throwing doubt on his party's crushing election defeat in April. He also appeared to defend his decision to declare emergency rule in the first place, claiming the opposition were, quote, criminal groups with a plot to destroy the country. Parliament is expected to vote on the second impeachment bill on Saturday. The first bill failed because of a boycott by most members of Yoon's People Power Party. However, PPP's leader has said the time has come for Yoon to resign or be impeached by Parliament. At least 7 members of Yoon's party are expected to support the new impeachment motion. At least 8 PPP votes are needed for the 2/3 majority required to impeach him.
Australia is set to introduce new rules that will penalise big tech companies if they don't compensate Australia's media outlets for news content on their platforms.
Big tech firms face paying millions of dollars in fines under new government rules in Australia. That's if they don't pay the country's media companies for news hosted on their platforms. It puts pressure on global tech giants like Facebook owner Meta and Alphabet's Google to pay publishers for content. Stephen Jones is Minister for Financial Services. He added the platforms at risk will be significant social media sites and search engines with an Australian-based revenue over $250 million. Tech companies condemned the plan. Meta said the proposal fails to account for the realities of how their platforms work. They argued most people don't visit their pages for news content, and that news publishers voluntarily choose to post content on their platforms because they receive value for doing so. A spokesperson for Google warned the decision risks the ongoing viability of commercial deals with news publishers in Australia. The proposed new rules come as Australia toughens its approach to the mostly US-based tech giants. Last month it became the first country to ban children under 16 from social media. Canberra also plans to threaten the companies with fines for failing to crack down on scams.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has highlighted the importance of dialogue between Beijing and Washington, while US President-elect Donald Trump invited Xi to attend his inauguration in January.
Ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's January inauguration and its proposed high tariffs on China, Chinese President Xi Jinping has underscored the importance of economic and trade cooperation between the two nations. In a written congratulatory message for the U.S.-China Business Council's annual gala dinner held in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday local time, Xi called U.S.-China relations, quote, one of the most important bilateral relations in the world, saying that conversation and cooperation should be prioritized over competition and zero-sum games. He also highlighted China's commitment to staying in communication with the U.S. and finding a path toward coexistence in a new era. But it is yet unclear whether Xi would attend Trump's inauguration next month. Incoming White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed in an interview with Fox News on Thursday local time that an invitation was extended to Xi as part of Trump's efforts to create an open dialogue with both U.S. allies and competitors. Xi, however, said it has not been determined whether Xi will accept the invitation. As is customary for foreign dignitaries such as ambassadors, China's ambassador to the U.S. and his spouse are expected to attend the event on January 20. And Trump also once again made clear his desire to leverage his close relations with North Korea to navigate global issues. In an interview released by Time magazine on Thursday for his selection as its 2024 Person of the Year, Trump called the involvement of North Korea in the Russia-Ukraine war a, quote, complicating factor, but emphasized how he was the only one that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ever, quote, dealt with. As he expressed his determination to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine, he criticized its use of U.S. weapons as escalating the war, but said that he would not abandon Ukraine.
U.S. President Joe Biden has issued presidential pardons to 39 Americans convicted of nonviolent crimes and commuted the sentences of nearly 1,500 others, including several convicted of multi-million-dollar fraud schemes.
The move comes over a week after the president signed an unconditional pardon for his son Hunter. Officials said last week that the White House was listening to demands for Biden to extend the same grace to thousands of people wronged by the U.S. judicial system. Biden said in a statement the people to whom he granted clemency would have received shorter sentences if charged under today's laws. Experts say the commutations announced were for those who were placed on home confinement during the COVID-19 pandemic to slow the spread of the virus, rather than many individual civil rights groups have been advocating for. The president said his administration will continue reviewing clemency petitions and that he would take more steps in the weeks ahead. Meanwhile, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who takes office on January 20th, has said he would act on his first day in office to pardon rioters involved in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, further building expectations for a broad granting of clemency.
We'll be back after a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. On the road to the White House now, President-elect Donald Trump rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange after being recognized for the second time by Time magazine as it's his own Person of the Year. The honor for the businessman turned politician are measured of Trump's remarkable comeback.
In his letters to readers, Time editor-in-chief Sam Jacobs credited Trump with marshalling a comeback of historic proportions and driving a once-in-a-generation political realignment that reshaped the American presidency and altered the U.S.'s role in the world. The Republican president-elect rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange to mark the honor alongside several of his family members and chants of USA. In an interview with Time magazine, Trump reiterated some of his plans for his second term. In further comments before ringing the stock exchange opening bell, he promised an economy the likes of which nobody's ever seen before, and he vowed to cut taxes very substantially. Time magazine's tradition, which started in 1927 as Man of the Year, recognizes a person or movement that for better or for worse has done the most to influence the events of the year. Other previous winners include climate change activist Greta Thunberg, former President Barack Obama, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Pope Francis and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Elon Musk has made history yet again, becoming the first person to ever achieve staggering net worth of $400 billion. Nearly $20 billion leap in Musk's wealth in attribution to the deal that he boosted the valuation of the space exploration company SpaceX to approximately $350 billion.
His interests in SpaceX and Tesla have helped boost his wealth in the past year. The businessman invested heavily in the re-election of Donald Trump to the White House, with investors hoping the billionaire will be able to influence the upcoming administration's policy agenda.
As weather improved in Southern California, firefighters found some success battling a wind-driven blaze burning in nearly inaccessible areas that forced thousands, including celebrities, from their homes in Malibu.
The red flag warning has been lifted in Malibu. Calmer conditions helped firefighters control the wind-driven blaze. And on Wednesday, they contained 7% of the fire, burning over some 4,000 hectares. The day also revealed the perils of living in paradise. The exclusive hills, home to celebrities and multi-million-dollar properties, remained shrouded in thick smoke. Roughly 20,000 residents were still under evacuation warnings, and a handful of people returned home to find their places damaged or destroyed. The fire, known as the Franklin Fire, erupted on Monday night and was propelled by notorious Santa Ana winds, sometimes called the devil winds that blow dry air downslope towards the coast. It ballooned quickly and, according to scientists, was a sobering reminder of the need to learn to live with wildfires, especially as they become bigger and more intense under climate change. Residents at this RV park were counting their lucky stars. The place was saved. Nearly 2,000 firefighters have been deployed to the incident, and authorities are investigating the cause of the fire.
In the days following the fall of President Bashar al-Assad, Syrians have crowded this regime's notorious detention facilities in a desperate search for loved ones who were jailed or forcefully dispersed. Thousands of prisoners have now been freed, many after decades of incarceration in brutal conditions. Yet many more of the missing have yet to be found, and hopes are fading as each day passes.
A new discovery in Syria. An American man apparently found alive, allegedly set free from Assad captivity. This video shows the man lying under a cover as a man explains how he was found in the early hours of this morning. In this second video, he identifies himself as Travis and says he's from the United States. The US believes the man could be Travis Pete Timmerman, an American who went missing from Hungary earlier this year. The men who saved him show me where he was brought to. This simple space with a mattress in the corner. This as Syrians search for their own disappeared. Crowds gathering around this wall outside the Damascus hospital, covered with gruesome images of the corpses found inside Sednaya prison. Syrians trying to identify family members who disappeared long ago. Inside the morgue, recognition brings overwhelming grief. He holds his living son, Mohammed's younger brother, tight. Even through the anguish, he says he feels there is a brighter day ahead. This morning, we come across a group of rebel fighters, and we notice one of them is wearing an ISIS badge, known as Daesh in Arabic. I asked the group about it, that this is the specific design of the ISIS flag. The fighter immediately rips off the badge. To this young man, maybe, the symbol has no deeper meaning, but the message to the world about just who these liberators are is still very unclear.
US officials are pushing for a ceasefire deal in Gaza's rising hope for the hostages. Hamas has also yielded to Israel's key demands for a ceasefire deal in Gaza that could release some hostages within days despite repeated collapse of previous negotiations.
Far from the noise and chaos of revolutionary Syria, U.S. and Israeli officials say there's quiet momentum towards a ceasefire deal in Gaza. President Biden's national security advisor meeting today with Israel's prime minister, saying the recent agreement to end a year of fighting between Israel and Hezbollah has breathed new life into negotiations on Gaza. The push, bipartisan. President-elect Trump demanding an agreement by the time he's inaugurated on January 20th. A deal would bring desperately needed relief to Palestinian civilians as winter closes in and Israeli airstrikes continue. The Gaza Health Ministry says at least 30 people were killed in the last day, while 101 hostages remain in Gaza, including 3 Americans still thought to be alive: Idan Alexander, Keith Siegel, and 36-year-old Sagi Dekelhen. This week, Sagi's family marking a bittersweet birthday. His baby daughter Shahar turning 1. She was born 2 months after her father was kidnapped on October 7th. Sagi has never held her, seen her face, and may not even know she's alive.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk chose not to join a potential initiative discussed among some European countries to send peacekeepers to Ukraine. With Donald Trump's January inauguration looming, Ukraine's European allies look to map out its long-term support for Kyiv, anticipating that Russians will opt to extend its war into one of attrition.
It's a prospect that seems to have gained traction in some circles. European countries sending a peacekeeping force to Ukraine if a ceasefire is agreed with Russia. But after meeting with Emmanuel Macron in Warsaw, the Polish Prime Minister insisted that his country was not planning such a move for the moment. Their meeting came as several European foreign ministers gathered in Berlin, also discussing backing for Kyiv. In a joint declaration, the officials underlined their support for Ukraine on what they described as its irreversible path to joining NATO. NATO predicts that 23 out of its 32 members will reach the alliance defence spending targets this year. The target currently stands at 2% of national wealth as measured by GDP. US President-elect Donald Trump wants to see that figure increase to 3%.
Georgia's pro-EU protesters vowed not to let up until new elections are held, as French President Emmanuel Macron said the countries had clearly been subjected to interference and manipulation.
For the 14th straight night, thousands took to the streets. Waving European and Georgian flags, they want to one day be part of the European Union. And for Georgia's pro-Moscow ruling party to stop delaying such talks.
Halting any aspect of this process or refusing to proceed will undoubtedly harm our country.
Since legislative elections on October 26th, Georgia's been plunged into political turmoil. Officials said that the Georgian Dream Party won, but there are widespread accusations of fraud. Yet it's the party's November 28th decision to postpone talks to join the EU until 2028 that created a surge of protests in the streets. Such rallies and gatherings have been met by an unusually harsh police crackdown and mass arrests in the Black Sea nation. Gangs of masked men have been attacking opposition members. From Poland, Emmanuel Macron said the crisis bears the signs of Russian interference. Such unrest comes just days before Saturday's presidential elections. The future president will be chosen for the first time by an electoral college rather than by popular vote. The change was put in place by Georgian Dream, and it's widely seen as a means of their consolidating control, much to the ire and concern of many Georgians. The current pro-Western, pro-Europe president, Salome Zurabichvili, is at loggerheads with the ruling party. While her mandate ends December 29th, she said she will not step down until a vote is reheld. One, she said, without widespread fraud.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. 3 dinosaur skeletons from the Jurassic period were sold at London auction for a total of £8.4 million.
Lastly, dinosaur fossils have fetched millions of dollars at an auction in London. 3 dinosaur skeletons offered by auction house Christie's on Thursday sold for almost $16 million as part of the Jurassic Icons Allosaurus and Stegosaurus auction. Excavated in Wyoming, the skeletons included an adult and juvenile Allosaurus, which was sold as a pair for around $10.3 million, while a Stegosaurus skeleton was sold for $5.4 million. Now, previously in July this year, a Stegosaurus fossil went under the hammer for $44.6 million at a Sotheby's auction, setting a new record.
And finally tonight, Swagbot, an AI-powered robot developed by the University of Sydney, is revolutionizing cattle farming and autonomously herding cattle and monitoring pasture health.
Researchers at the University of Sydney are betting on it to make the industry smarter, greener and more efficient. When Swagbot was first launched in 2016, it was a simple herding robot built to handle uneven terrain. Now packed with sensors, AI and machine learning, Swagbot can check the health, type and density of pastures, and even keep an eye on the cow's health. Using data to autonomously herd cattle to the best pastures, it can move them before land is overgrazed and soil becomes degraded. Salah Sukaria, whose team made the Swagbot, is a professor of robotics at the University of Sydney. Farmers constantly assess how many animals their land can support. However, many have little control over where the animals graze within large enclosed areas. And the issue is that overgrazing can lead to poorer soils that support less plant and animal life. Erin O'Neill is a part-time farmer who attended a recent demonstration of the robot. Australia, one of the world's top beef exporters, with about 30 million cattle, faces challenges such as labour shortages, poor pastures and environmental concerns. And Professor Sukaria believes that robotics and automation could be key to overcoming these challenges, making farming more efficient and environmentally friendly.
Thank you very much for joining us on World News Tonight. We'll be back with the latest updates from around the world on Monday. But until then, do stay tuned as we've got Anuradha Vikramasinghe joining you next on Nightly Business Report. Until then, thank you very much. I'm Akhil Qureshi. Good night.